This right here is the Steam Deck. I've had it now for about 6 months, and it's honestly changed the way I game. This thing really got me back into gaming, so let's talk about it. I've taken the Steam Deck with me on two trips abroad. First to Egypt a few months ago, and very recently to Jordan. And I love this thing, man. I really do. On my trip to Egypt, I played Limbo to completion, and then on my trip recently to Jordan, I just played Vampire Survivors non-stop. It was oh, bliss, pure bliss. And this is such a great machine, such a great machine. So let's talk about it a bit more. So this thing has a custom AMD APU. On the CPU side, it's a Zen 2 chip with 4 cores and 8 threads with a base clock of 2.4 gigahertz, and it can boost all the way up to 3.5. And on the GPU side, it has 8 RDNA 2 CUs with a base clock of 1 gigahertz, and it can boost all the way up to 1.6. So that means that this thing has roughly 1.6 teraflops of compute in this package, which is pretty incredible. So to put this in perspective, the Steam Deck has 1.6 teraflops of compute, and if you compare that to the previous generation of consoles, so say the PS4 for instance, that has about 1.86 teraflops, and the Xbox One S is roughly about the same. I think it's slightly higher, but that puts this portable PC on par with the previous gen of consoles, which is just incredible. Genuinely very, very impressive. It also comes with 16 gigs of RAM across all the different models. And speaking of the models, there's 3 different ones depending on how much storage you want on your Steam Deck. So the base model has 64 gigs of eMMC storage. One tier up from that is a 256, and one tier up from that is a 512. Both the 256 and 512 gigs have NVMe SSDs, so they are faster than the base model. And the 512 gig model also comes with an anti-glare screen. That being said, it's easy enough to literally just flip this around, take out the screws on the back, pop it open, and then within maybe like 10 minutes you can just unscrew the SSD, pop in a new one, and you're good to go. And also the difference in load times between the internal SSD and a good high quality SD card is really not much. So personally, I'd say the base model is more than enough for most people, but we'll come on to that later. Alright, so let's talk about the screen. This is a big device, and accordingly it has a big screen. So this is a 7-inch display with a resolution of 1200 by 800 pixels, and the aspect ratio of the screen is 16 by 10. So what that means is really it has a fairly low pixel density screen, especially compared to something like a phone, right? Most phones tend to come with fairly high pixel density displays just because you're using it so close to your face. But on the Steam Deck, it's essentially a 1080p display stretched across 7 inches, and you'd assume that because you're holding it fairly close to your face, you'd be able to pixel peep, but not really. I mean, you're holding it far enough from yourself most of the time, compared to like a phone, that it's not too bad. And genuinely, I really like this display. It's an LCD panel, not an OLED, unfortunately, but the colors are vibrant, and if you want to bump up the saturation a bit more, you can via some tweaks that I can get into in a future video. But obviously you don't really have the deep blacks of an OLED, so that's a bit of a shame. But regardless, the display is fantastic, and I love it. Very good. So the battery life. As I mentioned before, so far I've only really played indie games on this thing. So I played Limbo to completion, and then I played. Well, I'm currently playing Vampire Survivors quite a lot. So in my experience, when you're playing indie games or like something that has like a fairly low barrier to entry, something that isn't too demanding to play, the Steam Deck has a surprisingly good battery life. Personally, I think it normally lasts me around say 5 to 6 hours of screen on time. It charges up fairly quickly as well. It comes with a fairly high wattage charger, so that's good. So if you were to play more demanding games, like say most AAA titles, you could probably cut that quite easily in half. So it depends on what you're playing, it depends on how you're going to use the Steam Deck, but generally speaking, battery life is somewhere in the region of 3 hours up to like say 6. 3 to 6, which I think is good. It's very rare that you'd go say 5 to 6 hours without really having access to a charger, so it's not too bad. Obviously more battery life is always better, but for the performance you get out of the Steam Deck and all its capabilities, the battery life is good. Okay, so let's talk about games. So the Steam storefront is I guess the biggest storefront in the world with regards to games. It has the largest amount of games and I guess the widest variety of games as well. Generally speaking, if you buy something on Steam, it tends to be the cheapest place that you'll find it as well, just because of the way that the storefront works. I would assume that Steam takes a slightly lower cut than, say, Sony or Microsoft or Nintendo, and also they don't really have to deal with physical games as such, or at all really. So generally Steam tends to be quite cheap. Another great thing about the Steam Deck is because it's basically just a PC. You can access other storefronts like, say, the Epic Game Store or GOG, or a bunch of others, if you configure it correctly in the desktop mode, which is something I'll get to in a future video as well, just showing you how to set up and configure all of these different launchers and all of that. I haven't done it yet, to be honest, and it's something I'm looking forward to getting set up. And probably the thing I love most about this thing is, because it's a portable gaming console, is just the accessibility of being able to play my favorite games, both indie games and AAA titles, essentially whenever and wherever I want. It's similar to the Switch in that regard, in the sense that when Nintendo first released the Switch, it was such a I don't want to say groundbreaking idea, but it was such a clever play to have a significantly more powerful handheld console than normal, and having the ability to play massive open world games like Breath of the Wild or like Mario Odyssey, or all of the games on the Switch, having the ability to play that wherever you want. And obviously the exact same thing can be said about the Steam Deck. Night mode just turned on. Just the ease of access of being able to play small indie games like Vampire Survivors or like Hades, up to massive AAA titles like Elden Ring, Hogwarts Legacy, and stuff like that, right? It's just the sheer variety and sheer depth of games that you can play on this thing is just incredible. And also, because this is linked to your Steam account, there's cloud saves available. So if you were to play, say, I don't know, Elden Ring on your Steam Deck, and you put it down and you pick it back up on your PC, you should theoretically, at least most of the time, be able to seamlessly pick up where you left off on the Steam Deck, just on your gaming PC. And another great thing is all the different streaming options available. Specifically game streaming, obviously, right? So there's, for example, Xbox Game Pass. If you have Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, then you can essentially, it's a bit of a hacky way to do it, but there's instructions up on the official Xbox website on how to get it set up on your Steam Deck. You can set up Xbox Cloud Gaming, xCloud as it's called, on your Steam Deck. You can set up remote play as well from both your PS5 and your Xbox Series S and X, and also you can set up Moonlight game streaming. So Moonlight is essentially a game streaming service that streams from your, main gaming PC to other hardware. So you could set this up with Moonlight connected to your main gaming rig and just stream games across that way. And at least with remote play and Moonlight, because you're not streaming over the internet, you should have fairly low latency and a pretty good solid connection. So that should be something that works pretty seamlessly. And that's actually another thing I'm looking forward to setting up and trying out. And in terms of comfort, this thing is very ergonomic. It's very comfortable to hold. So it really reminds me a lot of the Wii U gamepad. Poor thing. Poor Wii U, man. Sometimes I just think back on that console and how badly Nintendo just decided to they just did this. Poor thing, man. Poor thing. Because especially all they had to do was call it the Wii 2 instead of the Wii U. But no, this is Nintendo being just themselves. And the advertising was poor, just everything about it. Oh man, poor thing. Great console, amazing console, but yeah, just lack of third-party support, lack of sales. I swear, I think the Switch outsold the Wii U in the first few months of its life, right? Would you just sad times, man, sad times. Anyway, back to the Steam Deck. So this thing, well, that was a tangent and a half. But yeah, this thing really does bring me back to the Wii U gamepad. It's a pretty similar size and shape. It's a bit more compact vertically, but it's about as ergonomic. It's good. It's nice to hold. It's hefty as well, which again is pretty similar to the Wii U gamepad. There's quite a bit of heft to this thing, but because of the ergonomic sort of handles on either side and just the way everything is placed, I really enjoy playing on this thing. It doesn't really fatigue me too much. Yeah, so I don't really feel too much fatigue from playing on the Steam Deck. It's It's a joy to use. It's very comfortable, and yeah, it's good fun. It's good fun. So I mentioned before about how the Steam storefront is probably the most prolific storefront, game storefront in the world, right? So another consequence of that is the fact that there's a wide plethora of community mods available for most games out there. So even if you have a game on another system, say for example like Stardew Valley, right? I have that on the Switch, played through most of it on the Switch, but I decided to buy it again on Steam. A, because it was on sale, it was at its historical low, and also because there's a lot of mods available for Stardew Valley to really change up the game, how it plays and how it looks and everything really. So that's another thing. Even if you already have a game on another system, on another platform, it might be a good idea to buy it again on Steam. You know, there's cheaper ways of buying Steam keys, not necessarily through the Steam storefront itself. You can go through like CD keys or bundle deals or stuff like that. And again, that's another video I'm going to have coming up soon, how to be clever about the way you buy games and how to get games as cheaply as possible. But yeah, so all the tinkering or the modding that happens with games on Steam might make it a good idea to potentially purchase a game again. And also, as I said before, this thing is literally just a PC that happens to be running basically Steam Big Picture mode, and there is a desktop mode, right? So if you hold down the power button, you can go down, switch to desktop, wait for it to load, and then boom, you have a desktop interface. It's perfect. Everything just works. And if you want, all you have to do is plug in a mouse and a keyboard, and you could literally use this as your main PC if you really wanted to. And you know, there's other ways to, I guess, install other operating systems. So if you want to dual boot Windows and SteamOS, you can. If you want to add a third, which is, say, I don't know, Batocera or Ubuntu, you can as well. There's so much available right now for the Steam Deck, and there's so much community support for it, and there's so much that you can do with this thing that it's genuinely incredible. I really enjoy it. I really do. So overall, is the Steam Deck worth it? Oh, I should put it away. Switching back from desktop to gaming mode. Screen's just gone blank. So there we go. Logo's back, and it's back. Don't worry, I didn't break anything. It's all good. It is all good. Anyway, so is the Steam Deck worth it? And I think the answer is an easy, resounding yes. For about $350, right? For the base model, this is such an easy yes. It's incredible. Like, especially because right now, it's readily available in most countries just to buy outright. So if you compare the value proposition, or say the price to performance of the Steam Deck versus other handhelds on the market, like say the Switch or any of these millions of Chinese handhelds, it really does blow the competition out of the water. And obviously that's because Valve is subsidizing the price of the Steam Deck, because they assume they'll make up the difference and more by people purchasing games on their storefront. So it's a bit unfair to compare it price-wise to other consoles on the market, which really don't have that ability because they don't have their own storefronts. But regardless, the Steam Deck is an amazing buy, and I'd highly recommend it. It's genuinely changed the way I game. I guess I have these phases, right, where, you know, sometimes I'm into gaming, sometimes I'm not. And Hades really pulled me back in on the Switch, I think this time last year. And nothing was really doing it for me until I really sat down and played Vampire Survivors on this thing. So, okay, so it's clearly worth it, right? But which model of the Steam Deck should you buy? You know, I alluded to this previously, but I think by far the best value is the base model, just the standard 64 gig model. Buy that for $350, spend another, I don't know, like $50-$60 on a good micro SD card. You can get probably a 512 gig for about the $60 mark. If you want to go up to 1 terabyte, you basically just double it. So it's more like 110, 120. So stick that in, and then if you do in the future really want to upgrade your internal storage, maybe you want to install, you know, other operating systems, all you do, again, as I said before, take out the screws on the back, pop this off, and swap out the SSD. So for a 1 terabyte internal SSD, in the 2230 size, that's probably going to set you back roughly somewhere in the region of $100 to $150, depending, right? You can find them on eBay pretty easily, and it should just work. I think the standard is the Western Digital, so the WD SN740. Just buy either the 512 gig, the 1 TB, or the 2 TB model. The 1 TB probably is the sweet spot, and that goes roughly for $100 to $150. If you really do want the anti-glare screen, all you need to do is buy a screen protector that has anti-glare properties, slap that on, and then for, I don't know, so all in, let's say for roughly around $500, you now have a Steam Deck that has twice the storage of the highest available model right now, but you've only paid about $500. So you saved a good $100 to $150 just by buying the base model and upgrading as needed. So yeah, just buy the base model, buy a good micro SD card. If you want to upgrade the storage later, feel free, but that's what I'd say. If you're looking to get a Steam Deck of your own and you want to know what the unboxing experience is like, click up here for my unboxing, and I'll catch you next time. See ya.